Ready? Yeah, ready. Hey guys, welcome to another. I got a bunch of clowns here. They think they're a David Letterman show here tonight. It's a different setting. We're at our house tonight, not our house. My wife and I, my house. Yeah, right. Yeah. My house tonight. It's a Christmas. It's our house, right? It's a Christmas edition. We're at home. The professor's back. Look at this guy. He has a reprieve from all his studies, and he's back, and he's gonna grace us with all his knowledge. And so we trust you had a very blessed Christmas. And we get a lot of questions about Christmas, and that's not going to be tonight's show, but we do need to talk about Christmas. We talked about it in our men's Bible study last week, and guys' eyes and their minds just woke up, and we can talk about that at some point. Saulo's with us.
How was your Christmas?
It was wonderful. Thank you for asking.
What did you do?
Man, chilled out with the family. Just enjoyed the family.
Nico confessed a little while ago that he ate too much yesterday.
I ate like a pig yesterday.
Con marrano.
Yeah, marrano. I mean, look, I eat real strict. They're always busting my balls about that, and I'm always on these guys because obviously he's on the seafood diet. He sees the food and he eats it.
And I go after it.
But yesterday was I did timeout break. I ate everything, man. It was so worth it.
Would you do it again?
Next year, yes.
Wow.
I was miserable. I asked Davi, asked the kids. I mean, I was miserable. It was ridiculous. But
Asustaste el baño.
What are you gonna
Okay,
do?
continue. Hey, we want to thank everybody that logged on. So please share this video, tag, like. We want to thank everybody that commented last week. It was a good conversation.
It was a really neat George, we were talking about George. We talked to George about it. I mean, and it was a fascinating conversation. People were respectful. Number one, we shared good thoughts on both sides. We kind of facilitated thoughts. People had passionate opinions against our president, and they gave reasons why. We facilitated
Passionate opinions against Trump? No way.
Yep. We had passionate opinions towards the president as well. Go figure that. And
you said no way, right? Because it happens very often. But if anybody says something positive, if somebody says something positive, it's harder. It's harder for people to say something positive, right?
What's that?
Why do you think people are so passionate about this president?
I think when people are left to their own devices, it's very easy to say good things about Trump. When people, in my opinion, you asked me, so I'm telling you, if you're looking just at deeds, I don't care what he did 12 years ago. I don't care what he said about women 15 years ago. It's bothersome to me, but it's not terribly relevant for the immediate moment. By the way, I did things, I did really stupid things 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I'm not proud of.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to judge me today based on that, I won't even be sitting here.
Yeah.
Good point.
So why do you think people are trying to analyze him like if we were trying to vote for a pastor and not necessarily a president? Where did we
you're
go
talking
wrong?
about in the Christian circles now.
Yes.
Because non-Christians don't give a crap. And by the way, guys, we're going to keep this PG-13 today because our kids could be coming in and out. So if I'm not my normal self dropping some, it's because I respect Ephesians 4:29. I'm respecting the kids. They're in and out. They're upstairs, but they could come down for some water or a snack, and I'm not going to be. There's Maya. Matter of fact, there's Maya. Hey, Maya.
Maya rocks. No, you said in the Christian circles. I think also on the non-Christian circles.
But an atheist is not voting doesn't care about Christianity.
But they're analyzing him like that because nowadays.
Because it's convenient.
Yeah, of course.
That's why. I mean, an atheist is only advocating Christian ethics when it's convenient to discredit Christianity.
Yeah.
Or discredit anything that a Christian supports.
Yeah.
So it's very opportunistic, and we have to call that out. I mean, so a non-believer, someone who does not follow the Christian worldview, doesn't care about the Bible, doesn't care about Christian principles. Yeah. So we have to meet them logically, meet them in their mind, which Scripture
and to be fair,
tells
it could be any religion. Not just
Hindu, Buddhist, whatever it is, or Islamic, that's exactly right.
So why do you think some Christians in some circles are analyzing Trump as if we're voting for a pastor, not necessarily a president?
Wow, do we have all night? I think that...
Well, a lot of night, yeah.
I think that Christians make decisions just like non-Christians do sometimes. I think they don't stop and think about the big picture. I think they focus in on certain things that are morally offensive, which is normal. We all have our buttons. I do. I mean, I don't know about you, but I got certain things that piss me off more than others. And so my eye kind of wanders there. Yeah. Right? There are other things that offend me less. And I think Christians tend to, in our zeal to live biblically and please the Lord, I mean, I'm going to chalk it up to good intentions. Yeah. Okay, there is that.
It starts there.
There is that section of Christianity which is very Pharisaic and very judgmental and very religious. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to set those people aside very well because that's red meat for me. Okay, mm-hmm. I'm going to discipline myself. I'm going to confine myself to the thoughtful Christians with whom I disagree politically, who have a negative view of Trump. And I have to honestly say I have never had a single conversation where one of them with one of them where it didn't come down to something that personally torqued them off, that just got them, it offended their personal sensibilities. But when we step back and we look at it from a biblical perspective, overall, those things tend to get really diluted because that's just what the Bible does. Jesus gives us perspective. The Bible should give us perspective in things, if anything. And I think that's useful. Those conversations are useful.
But I remember last
I think
week
it's just a lack of
about it,
perspective.
but George, last week we talked about this. What would those same Christians in that circle, and this is an objective analysis,
Yep.
what would they say about Paul?
Right.
What would they say about King David?
Where do you want to start?
Yeah. I mean, he committed murder to cover up adultery. What would he say about James and John, the sons of Zebedee, that wanted to send everyone to hell? If they had a Twitter account,
No.
they'd make somebody Trump look like Mother Teresa.
Let's go back to Noah.
Right, Noah, Samson. I mean, what would they say about male and female figures in the Bible that did horrific things in moral standards, societal standards? What would they say about that?
It's an excellent point because what you're talking about, it should actually be even more offensive because they ended up being religious leaders. They end up being religious leaders, individuals that God chose to be a platform through whom eventually the gospel was launched. We're not asking Trump to be our religious leader. I don't want him teaching my Sunday school. And by the way, he doesn't want to teach it either. So I'm sure we're in agreement.
Yeah.
So Trump's not volunteering to be a pastor.
Oh, what was that?
Right?
Yeah.
So he has a secular position.
Yeah. We want to.
So, but the point is valid. I mean, go back to Noah.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, the guy got drunk. He exposed himself twice. I mean,
Exposed
Abraham.
what, like his genitals?
Oh, yeah.
Make sure they understand.
I don't know exactly what he exposed, but there were things he shouldn't have been exposing. Right? And you've got Abraham, who lied twice about his wife, said she was his sister, had a particular plan for bringing about Isaac. He decided he was going to scare off. Sarah got kind of impatient. He bought in, ended up having sex with a woman he shouldn't have had sex with. I won't even get into the implications of that decision that we're still feeling today, right? And you want to talk about David? You brought him up, right? I mean, Bathsheba has sex with a woman he should not have been having sex with, committed adultery, then has her husband, then kills her husband, right? And then Isaac did the same thing his dad did. Right? And Jacob, goodness gracious, he lies to a dad, then he steals the birthright of his brother. And you've got the disciples. Boy, those guys are paragons of performance. Right? And our Catholic brothers and sisters who highly esteem Peter based on Matthew 16:18. Let's talk about your Pope.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh.
We could do this all day long. And then we get
Peter.
into the Apostle Paul. I mean, he called himself the chief of sinners with good cause because he was the chief assassin of Christians. These guys are religious leaders and the chief leadership channels through whom the gospel is spread to all the earth. They were good enough for God, but not Trump. I rest my case.
Look, the bottom line is he used imperfect people all the time. So that's where the analysis is. So last week, George, we talked about people's opinions of Trump. And if you're a Christian, I mean, look, we want non-Christians and non-believers to eavesdrop as we talk about on a family discussion within the Christian family.
Can I interrupt you? They were,
Well, you
I
just
know,
did.
I must. You said imperfect. These people were vile.
Who? Which people?
Everybody had just
Everybody he
rattled.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They sucked.
is-
I mean, I got it. Yeah.
I mean, these were beyond imperfect. These were vile individuals who lied, they cheated, they killed. Vile. So that's the standard.
Right.
We shouldn't shoot for that standard. I'm just saying if that's good, and if God can do something redemptive with those lives, the idea that Trump is the Antichrist, because that's the attitude that comes from a lot. It's just, the whole thing is, I think, rather deranged, and we would all benefit from just stepping back and doing what you're trying to do.
We have to make an announcement.
Yeah.
If the people that call themselves followers of Christ, that means that he gets to decide how we live our lives.
Indeed.
That means that we love what he loves, we hate what he hates. We have to analyze it through a lens. We put on our lens, we get that spiritual LASIK surgery of Christ, and look at things the way he would. So we have to go straight to the Bible to analyze
Discernment.
it. And properly handle the word of truth. It's the 2 Timothy 2:15 analysis. And do that. That's number one. So we did that last week when we were kind of just seasoning the ground, the foundation on what people thought about the president and why. And we wanted to have that conversation. And I hope that people that watched, we modeled, I think we and the people that called in modeled a proper way to talk about a sensitive topic. It shouldn't be sensitive, but still, it was a tough topic.
And we want to encourage people to call in. So the number is...
Oh, we're calling in today?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
210, number is 210-706-0122. You got the number up on the screen, Charlie? The number is 210-706-0122 because one thing we want to do, we want to have a conversation. It's awesome that we learned the first person that called last week, my wife told me, that somebody called and it wasn't in favor of Trump. But he gave a very, very interesting analysis of something else, not necessarily on his womanizing sins or anything else. He gave a pretty good assessment on issues.
Okay.
Because there's some issues we can disagree on.
Yes, of course.
So if you want to call and give your opinion on anything, we would love to learn from you.
Yes,
210-706-0122. Same question, George. First time you saw Trump announce that he was going to run for president, how did you feel or think?
Well, I remember talking to Nico about this. I mean, I thought the thing was going to be a flop. He's been talking about it forever.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was actually quite negative about it. He wasn't certainly my first choice.
What were you negative about?
I didn't take Trump seriously. I watched him on The Apprentice a couple of times. I've read The Art of the Deal. I thought, Trump's a bit of a street fighter. So actually, the reason why I didn't think he was going to make it is because I didn't think he was going to be politically savvy enough. I didn't think he was. I didn't think he was going to be smooth enough around the edges.
That's what helped him, baby.
I think my assessment was correct. So I didn't think he was.
You misjudged, George? Really?
Well, I don't know. It has something to do with habit, though.
Yeah,
Trump. He's been in the public square in one way or another for 4 decades. So I didn't think he was going to have the panache to survive in modern politics. And Nico and I we talked specifically about the fact that in 2008 he would have crashed and burned.
That's right.
Because I don't think the nation was ready when Obama came on the scene.
Yeah.
It was only after 8 years of, and I wouldn't just put this squarely on the shoulders of Obama. I think we had a Republican Party that was very facilitative of Obama's agenda in many respects. And so I would put the blame square on the shoulders of many Republicans, not just Obama. I didn't agree with Obama's policies. I'm sure he's a wonderful father. I'm sure he's a great husband. I'm sure he's a great guy. I'm setting all that stuff aside.
On the issues, you didn't?
No, I'm just on the issues I disagree with. Well, on a few things I think I agreed with. I mean, I've talked about in here when we were talking about. I think he had some words of wisdom for the black community in terms of what's really going on. What are some of the issues that are going on? Why we're seeing insanely high levels of unemployment? Why we're seeing sort of broken families. I thought he did an excellent diagnostic of that. If you go back somewhere around June 15th, 2008, I think it was Father's Day, and I think there was a number of articles that were printed out there. A lot of wisdom there. But Obama ran on wonderful, I think in many ways, sort of decent ideals. He ran kind of in the middle, but he governed way to the left. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. What I like about Trump is, one of the things I like about Trump is whether you like his personality or not, there's things about his personality I don't like. I mean, there's stuff that he tweets I wouldn't tweet. I don't communicate like Trump does. So I'm setting all that aside. But Trump says something and it gnaws at him. It drives him nuts until he achieves it. It's a personal thing for him. Yeah. This is just part of what he's like. He was that way in business, right, wrong, or indifferent. If Donald Trump says he's going to do something, he's going to have the tenacity of a weed. I mean, he's going to get at it. And so when you elect Trump and you're listening to his platform, you darn well better like what he's saying, because guess what? You're going to cut him loose and he's going to get at it. Yeah. And so people don't like the way he gets at it. Yeah. I understand that, but you can't take one thing away. The stuff that he said he was going to do, where he has been even reasonably empowered, has been achieved. Yeah. So setting all the personality stuff aside and all the stuff that I know you get in conversations about, tweets and all this stuff, 9 times out of 10, the issues that people have are tweet related. They're stylistic issues. When you start talking in terms of substance, I'd like to know what sort of substance do you disagree with in terms?
So this is what happens when George has been off the show for a month.
Yeah. He's got something to say.
He's got a couple things to say.
No, I'm sorry. I'll shut up.
No, it's good.
He asked that question for a reason.
Yes.
And we needed to get that analysis.
I hope I answered it.
No, you did. You did. But the question that it was 2 things last week that we really didn't get to. Yeah. How should a Christian view this whole modern issue or this current issue of the impeachment? And then we want to get to Christianity Today's article and all the hoopla within the Christian community that's been conveniently used by people that oppose Christianity to bash on Christians and bash on the president or whatever, and it looks like the community is divisive. First of all, every community is divisive, and the Islamic community is divisive. Hindu, everyone has different ideas, atheists, everything. So it's not going to be unusual that people within the Christian community have different opinions.
Yes.
It's how we deal with them or how we should deal with them that makes the difference. And so number 1, how should a Christian deal with the impeachment? That needs to be the discussion. And then number 2, and I want to get there quick, is about this Christianity Today article, because I think that's really important, because they came out with an article. It was a magazine that Billy Graham started.
Christianity Today. I think he initiated sometime in 1956.
You know exactly when it happened. Don't act like you think. And so Billy Graham started, and then like 200 church leaders came out against that and rebuked that type of their position, and there's been a lot of division within the church. So we need to talk about the impeachment. So how should a Christian, I have my opinions, let's have a discussion here and then ask other people as well. How should a Christian view any issue, but in this issue, the impeachment? What should we start with? What is the position? It's a rhetorical question, but I want to have a discussion about it. What are you looking for?
No, I'm just looking for the article so you can see it, so you can have it on screen.
He's got it memorized. What do you mean? You're talking about
No, I think that in any issue, I'm going to purposely steer a little bit because I want to make sure that the answer is true to the heart of the scripture, which is you pursue truth in everything that you do.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
So that needs to be a starting position. And you even have to set aside as best you can any experiences that you have that might skew the way you look at the scripture. In fact, that's what the core of the concept of exegesis is, which means reading out of the text,
from
trying to understand what the text is really saying, right? And so if you look into the scripture, and you and I have talked about the concept of knowing the truth, because these are principles that Jesus advanced. Know the truth, conform to the truth,
that's right.
and then champion the truth.
Correct.
So
let's break those down. First of all, we have to analyze that. Let's break it down a little bit. Why does truth matter? Because in John 14:6, Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father. So truth matters to Christ. That's one of his characteristics. Love, justice, and truth, I think, are kind of characteristics I know that we can attribute to God and Christ. And you don't get to justice without truth. So truth matters. God cannot lie. He's the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and forever. And so truth matters. He is the truth. Jesus is the truth. The really. And then so we have to know the truth. John 8:31-33, he says, if you're truly my disciple, then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free, right, TG? Set you free from everything, not just spiritually, but from life in general. And then we are called in Ephesians 4:15 to speak the truth. Here's the last part that all of us screw this up on, in love.
Yeah.
So that's what George is talking about. Christ is the truth. He's that standard for us. We have to know the truth.
Yes.
And then two, whether we like it or not, we as followers of Christ have to conform to the truth.
I think that's a really smart summary. And you mentioned the idea of being set free. What is it that we're supposed to be set free from? The truth will set you free. Well, from what? I mean, it sounds great, but what is it? And you know what? Jesus always started at home. And one of the things I want to set myself free from is my own pretexts. He wants us to pursue the truth in context, having a wide lens view, cast a wide net. Listen to opinions that you strongly disagree with. Right. Listen to opinions you strongly agree with. Look at the basis of both arguments. What sort of evidence, what sort of points, what sort of arguments are being marshaled in favor of a particular point, okay? So cast a wide lens. Do not be a victim to your own predilections, your own sensitivities, your own backgrounds, your own woundings, your own unfinished business. The first person you're going to be set free from should be yourself. And the notion that you're going to taint that analysis with your own inclinations, that's difficult to do. I would suggest that apart from the Holy Spirit, that's almost impossible. And so it takes that connection to the Holy Spirit. It takes that connection that you're just hell-bent on pursuing the truth because it pleases God. Like you said, these are elements of God's character, pursuit of truth. So I would start there. And then trying to get an assessment, if somebody's making claim A and someone else is making claim B and they're diametrically opposed, what sort of, and you can appreciate this as a lawyer, what sort of streams of evidence, what categories of evidence do they have? Scientific, political, social, personal. There are categories of evidence. How many categories of evidence are being considered in the analysis? What claims are those categories of evidence making? Put together a narrative, and in which narrative most accurately represents the truth out there. So we don't just care about truth, we care about objective truth. What we say about something darn well better be attested to out there. Jesus, I think, was a believer in what I call, well, it's an old view, it's the correspondence theory of truth. The idea that what I say has to correspond to reality.
That's right.
It can't just be my own view of the truth. It's got to be.
Well, we're dealing with that today, right? Subjective truth,
Yes.
relative truth.
That's right.
I mean, and I think the passages that we need to rely on here are John 17:14, as we talked about.
John 17, that's right.
And then also
Jesus' prayer.
That's right. And then also Romans 12:2.
Indeed.
Do not conform
John chapter 8
to the
as well.
patterns of this world, but be what? Transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
called to renew this mind that's deceptive.
Yes.
That we can be in bondage to,
Yep.
and conform it to what God says.
Indeed.
If we truly believe, and I really think there's a belief problem we have. I think the church has a belief problem. I really don't think that the church believes that they're going to be standing before this first century Jew called Yeshua. I mean, Jesus, the Savior.
And I'll qualify that a little bit. I think it's a correct belief problem, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of things we believe that are just simply not so, right?
Right.
So I think there's a big gap between the things that we believe in many cases and what the scripture is actually teaching. And that is a huge, I think, cancer level problem that we have in the church, which is biblical illiteracy.
And then lastly,
we're just not biblically literate.
Well, I agree with that.
Generally speaking.
But there's people that can regurgitate scripture but doesn't understand it. We talk about all the time wisdom.
Yeah.
You're being very quiet today. We talk about wisdom comes from what? Not just knowledge. You are being quiet.
Yeah.
What the hell's going on with you?
Learning a lot, taking notes.
Are you taking notes?
Yeah, taking notes. Just taking notes.
I kind of miss your voice now. I want to talk
Continue.
to Saulo.
No,
You're
continue.
nervous. Get the close up on my brother.
You're being really quiet, man.
No, nothing. I'm just reading the comments.
Yeah, what are they saying?
Yeah, a lot of stuff.
They don't tell
A
us
lot of people
anything.
are commenting.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's good.
I had to bust his huevos here.
No,
Sorry about that. The kids are coming in and out. If you hear a noise, the kids are coming down, the dog's being taken out.
Yeah,
This
it's not
is
the
his
Lord.
life. It's okay. Yeah, it's not the Lord. He's not coming back yet. But and then now lastly, we have to champion the truth. So know the truth. And by the way, guys, let me tell you this. This is a prescription to analyze any situation at work, at home, at school, any situation, politically, socially, societal, anything. Know the truth, find out what that is, conform to the truth, biblical truth, and then champion the truth. We have to champion, even if it's uncomfortable. And we talk about that in John 18. That is a fascinating discussion with Jesus and Pilate, right?
It really is,
He goes, what are you here? Was your kingdom from the world? What's it from? Well, if it was from here, I came to testify to the truth.
Right.
And then Pilate says something that we've talked about on the show more than one time. He's like, what's truth? And then walks away. What's truth? He ignored the truth and he conformed with what the very vocal minority, or at least the vocal people wanted at the time.
That's right.
And they chose truly an insurrectionist, Barabbas, a murderer, an insurrectionist. They chose that crazy SOB. When the kids are around. They chose that bastard over Christ.
You know, I think that's there by design, Nico, because it wasn't just some guy who did some really bad things. Barabbas had a specific resume. I mean, he was actually a political agitator. TG shaking his head because you know where I'm going with this. He was a political agitator. He was a revolutionary. And these are exactly the same charges they brought against Jesus. And so I think the text is trying to show us the levels to which we can be cognitively dissonant, the levels to which we can suspend what we obviously see as true, but because we're afraid, we choose the narrative that is not true. It was so glaring.
But the church is doing that today.
Well, human beings do that.
I got that,
the
but
church
even
is
we're
getting
talking
a
about
master's degree
But
in that.
we were talking about how the church responds to certain situations, and the impeachment, which is this Christianity Today article, is important. And again, this has nothing to do with whether somebody supports the president or not. This has to do with what process are you advocating for? Truth has to matter. I mean, when I was the district attorney, there were some, and I shared this with people, there were some lawyers that I wouldn't piss on if they were on fire. I just think they're unethical. I didn't like them as people. I think they're immoral. But that doesn't mean I take it out on I had to make an objective analysis on evidence, and then for me, I had to check my moral compass and find out what was true. And I didn't do what Pilate says, what's truth? I'm gonna go by how I feel. I'm gonna go how I think of this person or that person or whatever. That doesn't matter. Lady Justice wears that blindfold. And so Christians need to champion truth, which is the last one, right? We have to champion truth courageously. 2 Timothy 1:7. God didn't give us a spirit of timidity. And that means even when it's unpopular, whatever it is, we can champion and not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
And so on that
notion, you don't have to, it's not all or nothing. TG and I talked about this last week. You can disagree with something the president does, but support what he's trying to accomplish, or how he accomplished something, or President Obama, or President Bush, or Clinton, or whoever it is right now. I mean, I'm just fascinated by the obsession, and I really had to think about why people are obsessed with this president. I mean, they are. They're either obsessed with supporting him, or they're obsessed with opposing him. But it's an obsession. And I really think it's exposing ideologies. I really think that this president was ordained to be president to expose ideologies. And then people can make a decision on which ideology.
So he was chosen by God, you think?
Absolutely, he was.
Placed by God?
And see,
just like Obama was.
And if you don't accept,
as the scripture tells us.
So you're saying,
no, I mean,
am I wrong?
All leaders are in place because God ordains that.
That's right.
So, and without getting into that right now, because that's a
whole separate discussion. That's what you did.
That's a huge rabbit trail. But what I didn't like about the article is that I thought the article was intellectually dishonest. Getting back to truth, if you're going to slam Trump and you're going to request or suggest that that evangelicals should support the removal of Trump, right?
Because that's what the article. Those that
really the crux.
Just really quick, because I didn't want to interrupt your analysis, but I know you won't forget it. For people that didn't read it, just really quickly give the highlights. Why was this article such a hot issue in the church circles that the non-church circles are obviously chiming in on, which is fine.
Well, I think the article, misrepresented Trump because it focused, again, on ancient history with all respect. I mean, looking at the fact that Trump had a less than, shall we say, biblical lifestyle. The Trump, and it talked about sort of some of the questionable things that he said regarding his sexual exploits, if you will, the way he treated women, etc. Certainly mentioned those things. I think it did a really poor job talking about the things that he has done while he's been in office. In other words, policies that clearly evangelical Christians or any Christian of any faith tradition should be able to support. From life, from taking a stand. I'm not even going to get into the nuances about Israel. I think Trump's position on Israel has been pretty black and white. He's not bringing the idea that some Christians do of feeling sort of a connection to Israel, spiritual connection, because they were obviously the predecessors of the New Testament.
A lot of people don't understand why Israel's a big deal for Christians.
It's a big deal
if you can
because
give the Cliff Note version, because I want to make sure people are with us.
It should be politically consequential to everyone, Democrat and Republican, every American. We need to understand that Israel really is the single solitary democracy in the Middle East. It is the only one. And they're surrounded by nearly 24 authoritarian regimes, the vast majority, if not all of which, are Islamic. And so that has some very obvious, relevant national security perks and benefits for us. Now, as a politician, that matters. And if you're looking at a place of stability, that adds stability to an otherwise unstable environment.
Now that's the political analysis, now the biblical analysis.
I believe Trump looks at it that way. Trump's a pretty black and white guy. And so it hasn't been, and you and I talk about how it's only been until recent times that he's talked in terms of left and right ideology terms. It took him a while to get to that point where he was actually using the word left. And I think he's had an opportunity to see what's going on politically.
And so people understand the leftist ideology is an ideology that's not liberal. We don't want to mix use words. We want to make sure people understand what we're talking about. A classical liberal is live and let live, free speech, liberal arts. I disagree with you passionately, but I'm going to defend your right to say it. That's leftism believes in egalitarian. It's more of a socialistic Marxist, right?
Yeah.
Just real quick, if you, I just want to make sure. I don't want to assume that people understand these terms. Maybe I'm too much of a lawyer. I want to make sure there's definitions so people can understand what we're saying.
When we talk about the left, we're talking about an ideology that is decidedly anti-American. It is a movement that has pretty much, in my view, taken hostage the entire traditional Democratic establishment. What has power right now, politically speaking, in the Democratic Party is not the traditional sort of what you call the blue dog Democrats. They're virtually an endangered species right now, soon to be extinct. I mean, the people that are driving the narrative and driving the power are people like Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
But I want the ideology of leftism. Right. Forget about the political side.
But if people want to know what those look like, FYI.
Got you.
FYI. So, things like there's a real disdain for the way the country was founded. Everything is viewed through the lens of racism. Everything. The country is racist. It was built by racists. These were individuals who had a very narrow-minded view of human beings.
And it's
in
an
terms
egalitarian,
Sure.
Everything's the same.
Everything is the same. It's not just that individuals should be equal before God, regardless of gender, right, or regardless of background, but that individuals should be equal in every way. You and I should not make any more money than each other. right? So our income should be the
Equality
same.
of outcome versus equality of opportunity.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
So it's equality of outcome.
Right.
So that's very important. Very heavy on multiculturalism. That there's no such thing as a culture that's superior to another culture.
Right.
Which is
religion is
a
superior.
notion I would
no
disagree.
ideas are superior. Right.
So no religions are superior. Right? And they should all be treated the same. Asterisk on Christianity. They get an extra dosage of hell.
Right.
Right? So these elements kind of characterize, and it's very Marxist in view because it divides people. Everybody's divided into a particular class. Always.
The oppressed and the oppressor, right?
That's exactly right. Now at the 35,000 foot level, there's the victim and the victimizer.
Right.
Right? And so very heavy investment on creating these kinds of class-related animosities. Okay. And so I think there's a lot of money and there's a lot of thrust and there's a lot invested on on sort of stirring racial issues and drawing on our past in this country, which has some very clear racist elements, no question about it. And drawing and blowing that up and stirring the pot. And instead of trying to sort of seek the common good and creating harmony among individuals, they want as much division as possible. Everything is viewed through racism. Everything is viewed through gender. Wherever there can be a line drawn, they find it.
Right. Okay.
And it's always the oppressor.
That's what we mean by left. It's not liberalism. We have liberal friends.
And it's a very neo-Marxist.
What do you mean by neo-Marxist? Just say
I'm talking about the philosophy of Karl Marx, who was a philosopher in the 19th century. Karl Marx wrote a book along with his co-philosopher Friedrich Engels. They should read. It's not great reading, but they'll get to see the elements, the radical elements of what has been traditionally known as communism. And communism is a political movement that always starts by dividing people into classes, like you and I were talking about just a couple seconds ago. This idea of through the lens of those who are oppressed and those who are oppressing, right? And so the idea that there's it tends to be more than socialism because there's an atheistic element. Socialism doesn't make appeals to religious claims. Communism is socialism on steroids. I mean, it brings the atheistic element.
Give us some societies that were Marxist in nature, just really quick.
Well, I mean, a good book to read on this is the Black Book of Communism. I think it's written, pretty sure it's written by Stéphane Courtois and his research team in 2000. And he does a very good analysis of the impact of communism in the 20th century. Goes through about a century and it breaks it down into countries. Okay. So it looks at USSR, it looks at China, it looks at Eastern Europe, for instance. It'll look at certain African countries. It'll look at
I got it.
You get the point.
Yeah, no. But I want to say the reason why I guess we went down this path tonight is because it's important. Ideologies matter.
Because this is what's driving the animus ultimately against Trump, and this is ultimately what's driving the support for Trump. Because you have two diametrically opposed worldviews.
Well, this is what I'm talking about.
That's
Either
the
there's
issue.
a passion against or a passion for. There's no lukewarm supporters, it seems like. Right. I mean, I think there's people that are open-minded, and you see people go switch either way, back or forth. Yep. But there's, to me, as someone that looked back, and we talked about last week, and you've known this, I didn't like his ass the first. I mean, when everybody was either way, you were kind of whatever. You didn't think he'd make it. I didn't watch the damn show. I didn't know anything about him. I just didn't care for him. At all. Not that I didn't think he was going to make it through. I knew. Okay. Gotta take these calls. They're live.
Yeah, I know. Hello.
Did he make it?
Oh, man, who's this? Mike said, "How's the quality of the call?" Let me call him. Let me call him back.
Yeah.
Who takes live calls?
I guess we do.
Is that you?
We did it last week.
Good.
Oh, sorry, that was you? You were testing it, bro?
No, not this past one.
Oh, okay, hold on. It's 9-2-10. There you go. Let's try it. Let's try it again. Anyway, continue.
Okay, talking. So all I'm saying is so when I look back, I'm almost like I'm a spectator in the stands.
Sure.
And I'm thinking to myself, this is fascinating to me. Such passion and either hatred or, as some people think, almost like a worshiping, right?
Right. And cultish.
Cultish almost. And I can't say that it's cultish. I don't know. As I see, for him, so to speak, he's the champion that's defending the ideology maybe and attacking the other ideology, and then he is stopping this ideology, the leftist one. So the same leftist, for me, the guy in the stands that loved him before when he was on their side, now can't stand his
No,
ass.
that's exactly right.
I mean,
Trump comes
that's
into the
my
job.
observation.
No, it's absolutely correct. He comes into the job. It's black and white for him. Hey, there's a bunch of crap that's screwed up. He's looking at economic factors. He's looking at geopolitics. He's looking at sort of quarters of activity in the economy in the United States. This is a country he is passionate about. He loves the country. He's just real black and white. He's a grateful guy. He's thankful for all the opportunities that has afforded him. He's become a multi-billionaire. And so he's coming in as black and white. All hell unleashes on this guy. And he's wondering, wait a minute, these people are supposed to love me.
Hold on, real quick. Can I take a point of personal? Maya, come here. Let me kiss you guys. They're going to go out with Dabi. You guys leaving?
Oh, you're leaving? Go ahead. Hey, Michael.
Michael, this is Michael and Maya. Michael, come here. Michael, can you say hi to everybody?
Go like this, Michael.
Say hi.
Hi.
Hi. I love you, Daddy. God bless you.
Hey, what am I, chopped liver, no hug?
Give a hug to Theo.
Come on now.
Michael, I love you, Baba. Okay. Grandma. And the other two upstairs? Okay, mi amor.
I didn't lose my mic, did I?
So I think the number's on. You can call us in 210. What's the number, Charlie? 210-706-0122. We had technical problems, so if you have an opinion, you have a comment. I want to call out Daniel. Every time we've done programs, Daniel says, man, I got something to say. Put me on the program. So right now, Daniel, he said this. Check out what Daniel said. He says, the evangelicals are all hypocritical. He says, oh my God, you guys are being blasphemous. God did not ordain him. Trump is a wolf in sheep's clothing. And he said something else. Hold on. Okay, anyway. So Daniel.
Hold on. I called, no answer. Oh, Daniel said he called.
He called. That's
call
the guy.
Back, Papa.
Call back, Daniel.
I like Daniel.
Sí.
So what he said, all the evangelicals are being hypocritical.
Well, let him answer.
But let him define what that means.
Come on.
Look, Daniel, when you call back, brother, and if we ever break bread over lunch, and I know we've talked about that in the past, these two guys here, and Saulo también, but I mean, us two here for sure, I'm hard like a son of a bitch on Christians. I promise you that. And especially religious Christians, the religious type, that are all the rules but no relationship, and they're usually living some bullshit hypocritical, the kids are not here by the way, some bullshit hypocritical life, and I mean, they're gonna be called out, just like Christ called that out. But look, here's what I always say this, and please hear me. Never judge a worldview or an ideology based off its abuse. Let that sink in. Never judge an ideology based off its abuse. So I don't judge Islam based off its abuse. I don't judge Hindu off its abuse, Buddhist, atheism, Christian. Don't base it off its abuse, because there might be some shitty agent out there that's not applying whatever that ideology is, not just towards Christians, anything. Never judge by the abuse. Always judge by what its tenets, principles, ideologies are. Is that a fair statement? And so when you say they're all, I don't know what you mean by evangelical, number one, because the evangelicals people criticize me for the way we talk on this show. How much heat do we get? And you can't biblically tell me what we're doing is inappropriate. You can see I'm constantly analyzing, making sure the kids aren't around, understanding your audience, Ephesians 4:29. And any Christian, quote unquote, that's worried about me saying shit, son of a bitch, the F word or whatever.
Poop.
Oh, sorry, there Maya just walked in, see, I'm gonna get in trouble. Anybody that's worried about that and not understanding the true civil battle, the civil war that's happening, of ideologies in our country and what world we're going to live back. I mean, they're not analyzing the situation right. Rome is burning, and we're worried about certain words, and we're losing ideological wars out there. And so, Daniel, I'm telling you.
Call in, Daniel.
Call in, brother.
We want to hear you, Daniel.
Call back. Please call back. Because I want to understand what you mean by an evangelical. And when you say all, maybe I'm too much of a lawyer. All are hypocritical.
Yeah, I was going to say.
What does that mean? That's a strong statement, Daddy.
I was going to ask Danielle when he calls in to actually, because if we can give him about 15 minutes, do you think you can list all of them for us?
More than 15 minutes.
I mean, you're going to need more than 15 minutes.
We're going to go longer than 9:30 tonight.
Right. So who's all? I mean, anytime you start a comment or a statement, Danielle, with all, man, I think you can see how that's going to get you in trouble, right? Because it's indefensible. Yeah. Really, all?
Weston says,
wow.
As a Christian, as an executive pastor, as one of the biggest Trump supporters in Bexar County in Texas, I can tell you Billy Graham voted for Trump, and I voted for Trump. No one president has done more for Christians and Israel to date than this president. Dang.
Yeah, that's a defensible statement. You had, if we just want to talk about a simple thing, just to give you an idea of the fear of the left has all the political power in the United States right now. This is why churches are very afraid to speak out, because they will Twitter your ass out of existence. They will threaten your livelihood. Yeah. Okay? Come on. Everybody who's listening has read a story or two of a kid or an adult getting their MAGA hat knocked off their head, sucker punched, harassed in public. You kidding me? This isn't a mystery. Let's just be honest here if we're having an honest conversation. I want you to please find an example of the same on the other side. What evangelical Christian is going around doing that? What Trump supporter is going around knocking people out? Hey, you know what? Please find me one example of that and send it over to me with all respect. Spare me the outrage, okay? I care about deeds. I don't give a rat's rear end what Trump said 15 years ago. I care about what's happening today. And the left, as a religious political movement in this country, is a danger to every American who may be listening or who's not listening. That's where all the political power is right now. If you're concerned about those nasty, wascally racists, of course there's racists in the country. They have literally zero political power. They will be immediately called out and ostracized. If you can think of one person in the Senate, in the House of Representatives, anybody with any kind of power, a college president who is blatantly racist, who is making statements about one individual versus another on the basis of their color, in terms of their value of human beings. Name one. You won't find it. That's not where the political power is. The church is afraid of those who have political power. I think Dennis Prager has it right when he says there's no fear in the country right now like the fear of the left. These are neo-Marxist, intellectual fascists. It's taking over American institutions of learning.
That's what happened when you coop up
But
George
this is
for
a
6
fact.
weeks.
These are just blatant facts.
But what
This
we're
isn't-
talking about here is an ideology here. We really are
It's a
talking
religion.
It's leftism is a religion. It really is.
It is.
And again, and I think people misuse terms when you interrelate liberalism and leftism. The people
Yes.
say liberals all the time, and I think they really need to
So,
check
Nico,
themselves.
we should probably say what policies then? I mean, he's clearly
talking about?
pro-life. I mean, because talk what is Trump doing?
For the Christian.
Right, because the same people who can't stand him right now thought he was a hero, right? I mean, before the election, Trump has been a secular man. He's been a Democrat, pretty much. I mean, he didn't vote Republican. So why hate him now? It's the stuff that he's behind. He's decided the policies. He is decidedly pro-life. He cares deeply about pro-life policies for the unborn, those human beings who can't speak for themselves. He cares deeply about that. He has a problem with the idea that we have abortion on demand. It drives him crazy. It matters to him. So he's consistent. That is an issue that is a paramount issue for every believer. I don't care what you think about Trump. If you're not supporting Donald J. Trump on that issue,
on the pro-life issue.
yes, primarily on that issue, and in other issues that affect the demeaning of human life. For instance, illegal immigration. The idea that we can have open borders and have unfettered access to individuals who come across the border, many of whom have been shown by the Department of Homeland Security to be of questionable background in terms of legality and criminal activity. So the idea that shouldn't...
We got to pause on the live call.
I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I'll shut up, please.
No.
Hello?
Hey,
Who's this?
this is Daniel.
Oh,
Hey,
good.
Daniel, thank you for calling in, Daniel.
Daniel, what's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on?
How are you, Papa? Hey, we had a
doing
question
good.
about your comment. Thank you for commenting. This is Nico and George and Sauro here. We had a question about your comment. You made a very specific comment, Papa. You said... What?
First of all, let him give his opinion.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
General
Sure,
thoughts
sure.
About Trump.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on Trump, Daniel?
What do I think about Trump?
Yes, because you said several comments.
Well, you know what? I honestly, in my heart of hearts, and and I've prayed about this. I even spoken to God about this. And I honestly, I don't hate the man because hate's a very strong word. I just dislike him. I just dislike him for who he is as a person and what he's done to this country. I mean, people can argue back and forth that he's doing all these great things and all this, which I'm not gonna sit here and tell you some of the things he's done are great. But if I, as a person, would say and act the way he did, I would not be in business, and you would not be my friend.
So what specific, Daniel, just...
That's my whole argument with people, because especially if even people who go to church and, check in at church every day on Facebook, whatever, all these people are supporting Trump, right? So I've asked this question to people. If I acted and said the things he has done in the past and even now, would you still be my friend?
We would.
And no, and some of them are like, well, probably not. So as I'm saying, people are being hypocritical. And I'm talking about the right wing, and I'm talking about people who are like devoutly religious and whatever.
So Daniel, so just so I can understand where you're coming from, Dad. So your position is someone of the Christian worldview. Forget.
I mean, I consider myself a Christian.
No, I know.
believe in
I
God.
thought you did. I'm pretty sure. I thought you did, Daddy. So someone that, in your opinion, someone who considers themselves a Christian or that follows a Christian worldview and believes in Christ and that's to say,
Yes,
should
yes.
not support someone like should not support Donald Trump. That's your position.
Yes, because, and the thing that bothers me also is that, Donald J. Trump would make fun of Obama and, where's his birth certificate and blah, blah, blah. But nobody can say anything about Trump or talk about Trump because if you do, you're a leftist and, you're this, you're a liberal. And I said, but you know what? I'm not left, right, or liberal. I'm an American, and I'm a gay Christian man. I believe in God, whether people can throw stones at me about me being gay, etc. To me, it doesn't really matter because I know who God is in my life, and I know who God is to me, and no one can ever take that away from me. And the thing is that people, are talking about Donald J. Trump like he walks on water, and he doesn't. He's just a man.
Well, I agree. Have you been listening to our conversation, Daniel, leading up to your phone call?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
I've been listening to parts of it because I'm trying to finish my paper for school. But
okay. Thank you for listening.
So I'm trying to multitask here.
Yeah, I got
but the
it.
thing is, Nico, and I respect people's opinions and stuff, and I don't like to get into arguments with people. But my thing is, people say, well, he's redeemed, he's changed, and blah blah blah. And I tell people, well, a Christian man wouldn't act like that. Somebody that believes in the Bible and like your, I don't know, your brother-in-law or the other guy that's there.
My brother-in-law.
I have never known any other president that is not pro-life.
You've never known a president that's not pro-life?
Yeah, because I'm pro-life.
I know
tell
presidents
people,
that have said it, but they're
everybody has, everybody has the freedom to do what they want, but when you're going to just have a baby or have sex to just have sex and then be like, I'm going to go get an abortion, to me, that's not right. That's the most ridiculous thing to me. And, people are adults, and I'm the most pro-life person you will ever meet. To me, I mean, if you hurt an animal, I get pissed off. If you hurt a child, I'll freaking kill you.
I love you. Well, Dan, I'm a big fan of you personally. You know that, brother.
Theoretically, don't take me serious. Theoretically. But you know what? Everybody has an opinion about Donald J. Trump, and Nico, you know what? In all honesty, I prayed to God about it, and I said, God, you know what? If I'm wrong, and for me being reactive to people on Facebook, etc. I said, please help me not be that way. But and I said in the same token, when I prayed, I said, God, you know what? If this man is being false or he has false character, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing, I go expose him to the American people for who he really is.
As a Christian man, and George wants to ask you a question, Daniel. I just want to ask this question. As a very open, and I love your boldness about your faith, Daniel. As a Christian man, who do you support?
At this moment, I don't support any Democrat or any Republican. Because you know what, Nico? To me, this country is so divided, and it makes me sad because we all live here, and we all want America to be great and wonderful, and for everybody to be prosperous, and for the economy to be great. But you know what? What he did was really actually divide this country more, and he let the racist people come out of the woodworks and think and act like, it's okay to be ugly to Hispanics, or if you don't speak English and blah, blah, blah. Because you know what? It's happened to me. And it happened to me at Panchitos, of all places. And the to-go line. So, you know, and I could have told that lady a thing or two, but I chose not to.
Hey, Daniel, let me give you a comment somebody's put on Facebook.
We need to qualify a couple of things here.
Okay, so Susan says, this Daniel guy is very judgmental, but I'm sure he doesn't like to be judged. George has something to say.
Daniel, you started
I'm not being judgmental. I'm just giving my opinion. I mean, I'm not throwing stones at him. I'm saying what I feel as a person. Because me judging him, I could open up the whole book of what he did in his past. I'm not talking about his past.
It's irrelevant.
I'm talking about what he's doing now.
Okay. George has a question.
Okay, Daniel, can I respond? Daniel, can I respond for a second? Okay. I have two things that come to mind that I thought were really interesting because I was trying to hear you out. You started the conversation by saying that the whole premise of your comments were, and you gave the scenario of how you asked some of your friends, if I treated you like that, these are friends that I guess are Trump supporters. If I treated you like that, would you be my friend? And they said probably not. So I want to comment to that. I think that I understand where you're coming from, but I think that that's not a very helpful question because the standard isn't whether I'm friends with Trump or whether he would be my buddy. I'm not hiring a buddy. In fact, when I was in corporate, I hired lots of people who were not terribly polished around the edges, if you know what I mean. They weren't necessarily approachable, but they were the best. They had a reputation for getting things done. Now, I didn't want anybody to leave a trail of broken bodies behind them either. But Trump, but here's the thing, because I want to get to facts. And the facts are that we have a media, because you were using the Obama example, and this is a matter of fact. The number is 93%. We have documented the fact that 93% of all media coverage in the last 2.75 years that Trump has been president has been negative. Virtually all the major networks have provided far more negative coverage of Donald J. Trump than they ever did Barack Obama. That is not a George Araujoism. That's not an evangelicalism. That is a matter of fact. And you can look that up. Take that number, actually, 93%, and check it out. Okay? So he's getting a boatload of negative coverage. It's not that people aren't free to say negative things about him. That's virtually all they say, number one. Number two, being a friend isn't really the standard. Evangelical Christians would agree with you in the sense that this is probably not a guy that I would invite to, have a warm and fuzzy conversation with my toddler. I get it. But that's not the standard. The standard is evangelicals, I think rightly so, believe that the country is headed in the wrong direction. And by the way, that polling all shows that. Not now, in late 2016. And so they wanted somebody to change the direction of the country. They listened to what Trump said. They didn't give a rat's rear end whether he sounded nice or not, or whether he talked about the P word with regard to women years before in 2012. They didn't give a crap about the Access Hollywood tape, because that's not what's at issue. We've established that Trump says things that are offensive. Got it, check. That perhaps, the average pastor shouldn't say. Got it. Or the average evangelical Christian shouldn't say. Got it. But that's not what's at issue. The issue is, whether it's pro-life policy, whether it's anti-family agenda. For instance, and you and I could get into that conversation. I'd love to. We should have lunch with Danielle just to talk at length. There are agendas that evangelicals firmly disagree with, and I don't want to. When I talk about an evangelical, I'm talking about a branch of biblical Christianity in the United States that has a long, over century tradition. And the reason everybody picks on them because they happen to be politically active. Virtually every other branch of Christianity really isn't politically active, so people don't talk about them. It's not that evangelicals are doing something wrong, it's just that they happen to be the visible people. So, they're visible, so they get beat up on. But evangelicals, for the most part, have a traditional biblical orthodoxy. And the issues that they care about morally and politically, they don't want their country to change, Danielle. They want the country to be as it was founded. That doesn't mean we don't correct wrongs. It doesn't mean that we don't address injustices, because again, the Bible's our standard. But at the end of the day, Trump's commitments, his policies, is what they voted for. They didn't care whether he was friendly or not. And so I'm just submitting to you, based on your opening statement, that perhaps when you say that, if you're trying to win over evangelicals, because we're supposed to live in peace and harmony and present arguments to one another, I would submit to you that that's going to fall on deaf ears because they don't care. They don't care that he's not friendly or that he doesn't come across friendly. That's not relevant.
And Daniel, and I know you have to do your paper, and we want to make sure we.
We'll leave you alone.
Well, I
hope that makes sense. Does that make sense?
No, I guess the thing, Daniel, is are you open, or would you continue to evaluate your analysis of any leader, any quote unquote public servant, politician, through a biblical lens? Is that your standard, so we can understand your analysis? I mean, that's the question I have for anybody that supports or doesn't support him. What is your standard?
Well, okay, so my stand. Okay, like I mean, I have friends on both sides who are Democrat, Republican, whatever, and because in my line of business, I mean, I'm friends with everybody. I talk to everybody. Everybody has their opinion, and everybody. I tell people, you're free to vote for who you want to, whatever. We can still be friends. We can agree, disagree. But I tell people all the time, I go, the one thing I hate and I dislike about politicians, Democrats and Republicans, they always attack the gay community.
You say attack,
blah,
Daniel,
blah, blah,
attack?
and blah, blah, blah about the gays. And I'm like, dude, we all pay taxes here. I probably pay more taxes than some of you. So, and that's my whole issue with all politicians.
Daniel, can I interrupt you and ask you, can you think of one single anti-gay policy that has either been uttered by Donald Trump or a significant member of his administration? What's the number one thing that you have an issue with that Trump has uttered specifically against the LGBT community?
He went after the trans community in the military, that they're, I forgot what the policy was, or they can't have some medical whatever.
Let me ask
stuff. But I mean, I can look it up and
the reason I'm asking is because I just assumed. Hold on, I just assumed that this was a near and dear issue since you're intimate with this issue. So I just assumed that you had something sort of ready to go. But I don't want to sabotage Nico's direction here, but I have a response to the trans thing, but I'll let you go ahead and continue, please.
I mean, Daniel, I love the conversation. I hope that we're modeling to people, just listening, asking questions, understanding your analysis. Your perspective is extremely unique, and I love talking to you. And number one, I want us to do that lunch we had talked about, all of us, Saulo, George, and yourself. And then two, if you'd be open to, I'd love to have you on the show on another issue when we talk about gay issues, transgender issues, because we're going to talk about it all. And you've known me for years, Daniel, and you know what kind of person I am. And so I'd love to have you part of that conversation, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. And and people ask me, oh, you're not a Trump supporter. I'm like, I don't really care for the guy. I mean, I really don't. No, honestly, I don't. I said, I go, people can tell me he's a Christian.
Who's that?
Turn blue in the face.
Trump?
Talking
about Trump?
And I just don't believe that. And you know what? And I know that people support him for his policies and whatever he's doing. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that some of those policies weren't great or whatever. But I just personally do not like the guy.
That's fair. Thank you for being honest. I think it took courage to say what you're saying and to call in. But I think you, and I don't mean this negative, I think it illustrates for people sort of the point that we were making, that people have legitimate opinions against Trump, and they're personal opinions, and they have a right to have those opinions. That's legit. But
I have a personal opinions about Obama too. So
I get it. I appreciate you.
And Bush.
And listen, I could tell that, Danielle, because when I noticed that through your explanation, I don't mean this as a dig, I'm just being analytical here. Through your explanation that you didn't really give specific policy examples that you felt were in sharp contrast with the biblical worldview. You just simply felt that Trump just rubs you the wrong way, and he kind of gets under your skin. I get it.
Yep.
I get it.
Well, Daniel, brother, I'm a big fan of yours. Saulo's a big fan of yours. As a person, I've always been, you've been a wonderful supporter and a friend to me and my wife and our family. And so I hope you feel it's mutual. And
thanks for calling, man.
Yeah, we'll get a hold of you.
Daniel, before you go, Daniel, The other day we were trying to have a conversation because you said something that you said on your comments that sometimes Christians are against the LGBT community. So the other day, because we're trying to have a conversation on many topics, the other day we were going to address that topic, and I know it could be very sensitive to a lot of people. Would you help us have that conversation? Maybe one day come in the program and have other people that you think could have a conversation with us? You think you can help us in that area?
Sure.
You know, because we want to have conversations, not debates, not fights, but a real conversation.
Well, we don't mind debates.
We don't mind debates, of course.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry, what's the other gentleman's name?
George.
George.
Yes, sir.
Hey, George, you know what? Like on my Facebook page, I'll post stuff of Trump, the Clintons, Obama. Like my thing is more comical satire.
Yes.
To me, everybody's free game. I
understand.
And some of the stuff that people post that make memes, like I literally laugh about everything.
Hey, that's okay, man. They have both of them have plenty of material, so don't worry. Yeah.
Daniel, thank you for
Daniel. Hey, brother. I hope you had a blessed
Thanks,
Christmas,
guys.
Daniel. God bless you, Papa. And we'll call you probably tomorrow just to set up that lunch. Okay.
Thank you, Daniel.
Okay, thanks.
Okay,
Bye.
brother.
Man, a lot of people commenting, man. It's pretty awesome. Question, what is the standard used in supporting an immoral leader with Scripture? Is it justification for such behavior? Can't we also pick apart his behavior with Scripture as well?
Absolutely.
True.
Look, here's the deal. We can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. TG and I talked about that the other day. George and I have talked about that all. Because you support or don't support someone, that doesn't mean you support everything they do. What's wrong with saying, I love what this person is doing, whoever that person is, but I don't agree with this or I don't agree with that? Because the last time I checked, the only perfect person that was on this earth wasn't Nico LaHood or George or Saulo or Trump, Obama, Clinton, Bush, whatever. It was a guy named Yeshua, right? Jesus Christ from Nazareth. That was the only, as followers of Christ, that's what we believe.
Excellent.
Nobody else.
I think.
We got another caller. I'm sorry, George. We
Hello.
a live thing here.
Hey guys, this is Weston Martinez.
Hey, Mr. Weston, your comment on Mr. Donald Trump, sir.
You know, it's kind of simple. People voted for a president, and they got a CEO.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I think I know where you're going with it. Do you want to say more? Because I think there's wisdom in that.
Well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think that him being being a business owner, allowed people on the left to really force their hands to show where it is they actually where they want to take this country. Yeah. And that's why, you have people like George Soros, funding money against Nico and his reelection for district attorney. Sure. That's why you have Michael Bloomberg coming into Bexar County and encouraging the people that we have in office here in Bexar County to be more progressive, more left, and more anti, traditional biblical worldview. Yeah. And I think it's just the beginning. I mean, look, you've got a county commissioner that had a press conference inside of Commissioner's Court, which Nico can tell you is illegal. And they said that Trump was a racist, that the RNC is not welcome in Bexar County, and that if they came, that somebody would poison their food. And I was there, spoke on behalf of Republicans, just gave a very non-emotional, fact-based responses. And they turned the lights off on me while I was speaking, and they took the microphone out of my hands. Yes. Now, what a symbol of how they really feel about us. Earlier Nico made a comment that there's a war, and I put a comment on there for you a second ago. There is a war, but there's only one side fighting. Yeah, and we have to change that.
And thank you, Weston. I'm gonna respond to what he said. Thank you, Bob, for calling in.
Thank you, Weston.
But again, look. And we're going to talk about this. George and I actually teach on this. Was Jesus the ultimate politician? And should Christians talk about politics? Oh, the two things you don't talk about in public are politics and religion. That's
why we are the way we are.
Kids are right there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say stupid instead of BS. Hi, guys. That is ridiculous advice. That's BS advice. You should talk about both. Politics, what are you advocating for the affairs of the city? And religion, what is your worldview? And so we should be talking about both of those. This is not about Republican, Democrat. It's about an ideology that is supported by a platform.
It's an underlying ideology.
Yeah, we're talking about the ideology,
and
ultimately.
we should just really encourage people to step back. About 20 minutes ago, and we mentioned a very important statement, which is that consider that the individuals who are now willing to throw Trump to the dogs and doing everything they can, chief among them, the House Democrats, who are doing everything they can to cut his legs off. I mean, it is a full-time occupation for them. These were the same individuals who partied with him, same individuals who took his money, same individuals who chummed around with him for years. What has changed? And what has changed is the policies. The policies are going against their deeply ingrained religious opinions.
I want to finish off with are we taking a call?
One more call.
Hi,
Hello, who's this?
this is Bria.
Bria. Thank you for calling, Bria.
Is that the Bria? Is that Bria who I think it is?
That's Bria.
Hey, welcome.
Who's Bria? Hi, Bria.
Okay, so I don't have any comments. I just have a question.
Okay.
So, obviously, there's a lot of opinions, a lot of
You think?
turmoil, a lot of ideas going around.
Yes.
What do you guys challenge Christians? What actions do you challenge Christians to take moving forward towards the next election?
What actions? Okay, can we finish with that statement? Thank you,
That's a
Bria.
great question.
Thank you so much for calling in.
It's a great question.
That is a great question. Well, let's talk about it now, and then we'll talk. 'Cause I want to finish with the
Got it.
impeachment, how we should address the impeachment, because we keep going off on these very important topics that we're talking about.
Well, this is
It's
all-
been a
this is all
fascinating
related,
ebb
'cause
and
this is
flow.
stuff
Yeah,
people think about.
A Christians, we talked about it, I think earlier, Bria, should know what the truth is and use as if you're a Christian, use a biblical standard as the definition of that truth. And when you think about this, when then I have non-Christian friends and acquaintances say, "Oh, why do you have to have a biblical standard?" And I think what's fascinating to me is when you violate biblical principles to an atheist or an agnostic person, they get pissed off. It offends them.
Yeah.
No one likes murder. No one likes adultery. No one likes dishonoring their mom and dad. If you say the F word to your mom and dad, they thinks that's disrespectful. Nobody likes their stuff stolen. Nobody likes coveting. Like, hey, don't try to sleep with my wife or my husband. Why? Because, well, who cares? I can do what I want. There's no standards. I make up my own standards. No one likes false witnessing, meaning that you can't just lie about someone to get their business, to destroy them because you want their business, their spouse, their whatever, their fame, whatever. Just because you want to. You woke up one morning and said, hey, I want to lie about Saulo. Why not? What for? Just because. What's the standard? False witnessing. So all these biblical principles that I just mentioned, if you violate them to a non-Christian, they either get offended, they defend against it, or they use a biblical standard to tell you not to do it, but they won't give Christianity the recognition. So it's interesting because the designer, the person that put all this together, that transcendent God, the God of the Bible, the Christian Bible, understands the way that we're built and understands the rules of engagement in this thing called life.
Yes.
So I think it's fascinating that all these biblical principles, if violated to an atheist or agnostic or secular person, it bothers them, disrupts their world, makes them defend. They'll react. They'll defend against it. They'll use biblical standards to judge a moral action or not. And I think it's interesting when they use the word moral, but they won't give you the definition of what that moral standard is. So moving forward, Christians need to educate themselves, number one.
Yes.
You can't advocate something you're not educated about.
Right.
Educate yourself
or you
first.
risk advocating the wrong thing.
2 Timothy 2:15, 1 Peter 3:15. Properly handle the word of truth. Properly. There's a crud load of Christians out there that mishandle the word of truth. And it pisses me off. It pisses George off, a lot of us off, because then people use that bad agent as the standard now. So Christ gets again convicted again for something he didn't do. So educate yourself about what the truth is, on biblical truth is. Then, as we talked about, know it, conform to it yourself.
Yes.
Because you don't tell someone else what's going on, what's wrong in their eye, right?
Yes.
Don't take the log in your eye when the speck in your neighbor's eye, and then champion it. And that's going to take courage. That's going to take courage, and it's going to be uncomfortable. And you have to be okay being uncomfortable as a Christian. And Scriptures talk about that. That's number. And then the fourth one is get involved. So that's part of the championing. This thing called the Christian worldview and the Christian life is not meant to be by yourself, to keep to yourself.
Right.
You've got to be salt in life. The Great Commission in Matthew 28, you have to go out there and make disciples.
I want to add to that just some reading. Bria and others who are listening, I would encourage you to read the opinions and the thoughts of Dr. Everett Piper. He's the former president of Ohio Wesleyan University, I believe, and Oklahoma Wesleyan University. And he was an avid anti-Trumper. He advocated heavily against his election and wrote a couple of pieces. He went on Fox News and advocated against it. And then through everything that has transpired, is now one of the leading critics of the Christianity Today piece. He is pro-Trump policies. And I think that you should read, I think he's written some thoughtful pieces. There's a piece written December 20th in the Washington Times and from Everett Piper, so you should read that. In terms of the election, I would say, think about what we said about propositional truth. All Christianity, in terms of the truth claims that Christians make, is propositional. We propose something, right? X or Y. And then it's got to be objectively measured. What are we seeing out in our world that either says, yes, that's true, or no, it's not? The kind of truth that Jesus advocated is a truth that achieves. It needs to be achieved. We don't just say something's true and then pull it out of our butt and it's true. It's not subjective. The truth claims that we make is something to be achieved. We say something and it darn well better reflect the reality. So when somebody makes a statement about Donald Trump, whatever it is, let's say a common one from the left is, he's a racist, right?
Yeah, you hear that all the time.
Consider very simply, that's a proposition. So it's, if somebody said that about me, I would want somebody to say to me,
let's analyze
George, I've known you for 5 years.
It's an indictment, back it up with evidence, is what you're saying.
In the last 5 years, you've done X, Y, or Z. Is that true? Trump made a proposition too. He made a series of propositions that he was going to do. So we've had almost 3 years. What sort of evidence do you have that shows that he's either lived up to his propositions or not? So I think it stands to reason that if all hell is coming against him, and they were in favor of him before he was elected, then clearly it's the substance of what he is doing. And then you should study to see what that substance is. Yeah. And then you'll get to the bottom of it. This takes time, but this is the job of the Christian. We have to literally go after this stuff. Truth has to be achieved. We can't live on sound bites.
I want to thank Sonia, amazing comment. Wait, did we just witness an exchange of differences of opinions? What a concept. Thank you for modeling this, guys. Susan says this, I agree. I wish Trump would shut up sometimes, but he's still our president and we should respect him. Do you have moments like that? That you're like, Trump, really? Really, bro?
Absolutely.
But my wife feels the same way about me. Yeah, so what?
Yeah, because
I agree. I mean, it's true, but...
Yeah. I'm just joking. Not his wife.
Not just his wife, man. Because I think that's the problem. I think people, when you say, I support Trump, they think we're saying, I agree with everything.
That's what I was saying earlier. A Christian doesn't do that. A Christian sifts through all the BS and gets to the truth, the heart of the matter through the lens of Christianity.
Because we would love to eliminate some stuff of what he does and how he does it.
I think it's going to be very difficult, Salo, honestly, to just be candid. I think this has a religious proportion to people.
But here's
who are
the deal.
so accustomed to thinking a certain way, they don't even realize they're religiously tied to it.
Yeah, you're right, great. Yeah.
But about the impeachment, well, you get the kids. I want to be fair to the other two kids. I want to bring Leah and Zaito too before we wrap up. Thanks, Tyler. But about the impeachment, look, guys, as a former prosecutor, district attorney, as a defense attorney, someone who's involved in the justice system, evidence has to matter. Yeah. And so to talk about the impeachment, let's talk about this. A Christian, again, submits ourselves to a biblical truth. Micah 6:8 says, and what does the Lord ask of you? But to seek justice, not wait for it. Love kindness and walk humbly with your God. Proverbs 17:15 says, to convict the innocent or acquit the guilty, God detests them both. And so we're to speak the truth in love, all these other things. And so number one, truth has to matter. And you have to analyze the impeachment properly. And so as a lawyer and a prosecutor and defense attorney, when you think to yourself, okay, they're making allegations against the president to do the most extreme thing in our government, which is to remove the vote of the people and to remove a sitting president.
Right.
That's important. Come here, Zaiter. What's up, buddy?
Very important.
So you can sit. Come here.
Yeah. Sit right here, papito.
Sit right. This is Zaiter.
This is Zaiter.
The legend, the myth.
The legend, the myth. Yeah, sit with you. Want to sit with you or you want to sit with me? Well, sit with you. And so we have to look at those things, and what are they accusing him of doing, and is there evidence to back it up, and is this a partisan thing? There should be bipartisanship. Truth should be bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats. And so again, be careful of the world you help create, because someday you have to live in it.
That's right.
And there were many people on the Democrat side, people that did not vote for Trump, that said, man, be careful, guys. We are going down a very slippery slope. Because then in X amount of years, when there's a Democrat president, or if there's a Democrat president, then we are subjecting ourselves to the same standard that we're setting here today. And a Christian should be advocating for a standard. And it's a biblical standard, just like Islamic people advocate for the Islamic standard. Like Daniel said, as a gay man, he advocates for certain things that coincide with the LGBT community, and we're going to talk about that. And I'm so glad he's going to come on the show, and so we can model these discussions with people. Same thing with Hindu or Buddhism or atheism or whatever. Everybody's advocating, and if we're not there trying to persuade someone in our direction, they're persuading us.
And you know what?
And so we have beaten the Christian into submission today. We have beaten the pastor in submission. Pastors today are afraid of being called names on Twitter or Facebook instead of having these conversations.
That's right.
And like a conversation, I think Sonia made this comment, Rodriguez, who made a comment earlier, if we had these conversations, you'd be called a name to shut you up. We should not, we have to model, this is my motivation.
Yeah.
But not just my kids. TG, Art's future children, yours, your child on the way, our grandchildren, God willing. And what world are we leaving back to them? And in my humble opinion, and I think it's backed up by evidence, a biblical society and a biblical environment is the best environment to leave everyone in, even the atheists, believe it or not, for the examples that I gave earlier.
That's right.
The biblical principles are principles that are better for any society. And that's my humble opinion. I think I can back it up pretty strongly. Do you want to finish off anything?
No, just a comment. I always, when people talk about Trump, they always say Trump has provoked a lot of hate right in this country. But when
he's exposed it, not provoked
yes,
it.
yes, but also, for example, when you were in school and you would hit somebody, right? And it was not a fight, but you just pushed somebody, and it was wrong maybe. But then everybody started yelling, "Fight, fight, fight!" And then a fight broke out.
Okay.
The person that hit the other person was wrong, but then the people yelling, "Fight, fight, fight!" also is wrong, and they contributed to this. So I think in the nation, yes, Trump has bad attitudes, sometimes maybe bad things, but also the media has provoked a lot of things, and then we start getting involved in that conversation. So I just want to encourage people to say, you know what, if you don't like Trump, be careful when you start doing not hating the people, not liking the people that like Trump as well. You know what I mean? Because I hate Trump and I hate the people that like hate Trump.
Let's just be fair. To Nico's point earlier, the problem is that we haven't been fighting at all. There's been an advancement of this worldview, and there's been virtually no presence at all in the Christian community, certainly not politicians. Republicans have been totally sheepish. There's been virtually no pushback. This is why it's been essentially this massive uprising of enthusiasm and passion. I mean, 63 million votes for him because he fights. And there comes a time where you have to fight and push back. That's all I'm saying. That's a good lesson for Christians as well. We're not doormats. We shouldn't just sit idly by.
We've talked about being pacifists.
Exactly.
And
this is, and I think he's helping to kind of empower Christians to be able to proclaim the things that they believe. So there is a silver lining to that.
I think so. Did you listen to Mr. Saulo?
Isn't that right?
You had her attention, brother. She was staring at Mr. Saulo.
Thank you.
Was Tio right?
Zeither.
Was Tio right?
With Theo George right? Theo George was right?
Gotta have support among
Can you
the
give
young,
him your
baby.
face? Can you make
Gotta
their
have
face
support
for me?
among the young.
Can you show the camera your face that I love? No? You don't want to do that? Okay, man.
Ask him why you love him. Hey, wait, why
Zeither, why do Papi love you so much?
Say hi to Eden. Say hi to
Just
Eden.
because.
Say hi,
Just
Eden.
because, right? I
Say
love
hi,
you just
Eden.
because.
Hi, Eden.
Hi, Eden.
All right, she'll
You
love
want to
that.
go with your art, guys, when we finish up? Go with your art. All right, guys. Thank you.
Share some
Precious.
hair with your
Good
Theo
job.
art.
Watch out. Watch out for the wire, Papa.
Precious.
Well, guys, thank you for letting us look. We're probably going to be doing more shows here in the summer, maybe, you know, not with having the distractions and all. But I hope people, like to Sonia's point, I want to be that model. I want to set the standard for us to have tough conversations.
Yeah.
Our country was designed this way to have freedom of thought, freedom of expression. I'm such a big fan of Daniel. I mean, for calling in and sharing his thoughts with us and to be willing to come back on with us. I have another friend, Jade, another buddy of mine, Ken. I think that would come on the show to have these conversations when we have Daniel on. But about any issue, whatever it is, whether it's a gay issue or if it's the transgender issue or border issue, or, you know, and my wife's family's from Mexico, and so I mean, I'm Hispanic and Lebanese, and so we should be able to have tough conversations. We have to risk in our society offending each other, not intending it, but risk it to share tough topics and tough. We have to. We can't get to that point. Now, we always got to look at the intent, the heart. What are you trying to offend me? Or are you trying to share your thoughts with me that offends me? There's a difference, and I have to check myself. Am I being oversensitive? We have to do that. And in this situation, this is a battle of ideologies. And what I think for sure with you, support, not support, be able to defend why you don't support or support the president. I think what happened, what this president has done, is exposed an underlying ideology that was happening, that was going forward
was
like
there,
a
it was
stealth.
there.
For many
was
years.
going like a stealth bomber, and people didn't realize it was happening.
many years.
And before you know, it's like, oh crap, what's going on? What's happening around us? And so what this president has done for sure has brought this civil war that's been happening to a head. And we have to have a discussion about academia. We have to have a
Yes.
discussion about not more politics
Absolutely.
and what's going on in our schools.
Government corruption?
Government corruption needs to be called out on Republican and Democrat side, both, because the Christian cuts through all that crud
Yeah.
like a butter knife, like a knife. I don't say poop. Like a knife, like a butter knife, cuts straight through it, and always answers vertically.
And Nico, we have to make imperfect decisions. Well, our choices
With
are
good
not-
intentions.
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
our choices are not going to
That's
be
right. That's
this
right.
wonderful candidate and then this other candidate.
That's
It's
right.
usually going to be between okay and really crappy.
Right.
Okay? When you're an adult, you pick from okay and really crappy a lot.
Yeah.
It's not this perfect, sort of paragon of perfection and then this other scrub. So we just need to recognize reality here. Humanity's flawed, baby.
So the last thoughts.
No,
What do you
just
think?
that when Trump was elected, I told people when he's gonna get elected, when you're remodeling a house, you know the vision you're going towards, but you gotta understand that it's gonna get dirty. You're gonna remodel a house, it's gonna get so dirty, so
you're
bad.
detoxing.
Yeah,
When
you're
you're
detoxing.
detoxing.
It messes everything up, but you know it's gonna be better. I think we're there. I think it's like, oh, everything's out of
Guys.
place. Everything's coming like, oh, I didn't know, I had that in the garage. And
We still want to keep addressing issues that you want to. We have to get back to
Yes.
we have to do our now that we have George for what? We have George for what? 4 weeks?
I'll be back, baby. Be back next week. If
See
you'll
what
have me.
hap-
If you'll have me.
no, next week.
We're gonna
No, not next week. I'm sorry, Salo.
well, no,
Whenever
next
Nico wants
Thursday.
me back.
We'll talk about it.
Whenever he
We
says.
want you back every week, but we'll be here next Thursday, and New Year's is the Wednesday, but we'll be back here Thursday.
Wherever he says.
And thank you for tolerating us, Daniel. Thank you again. We'll contact you
We
tomorrow.
got TG in the house.
TG's here, Art's here. We have an audience. We might go to an audience in the future. We're kind of
Yeah.
open to different ideas.
We would invite you to come.
Yeah.
We would love it if people just showed up and
If
started
people show up,
commenting,
we
being part of
might
it.
do that. We love the interactive portion of it. I don't
Can you
know
imagine
too
imagine
many-
they're having a conversation sofa?
Yeah, we can do that. We have different ideas. This is about you guys. This is
Yeah.
about what you want to do. What would you say, Artie?
To read his Facebook post.
So God bless you guys. We hope you have just a great week.
Yes, and Merry
We
Christmas.
trust that. Yes, you had a
Merry
very
belated
merry and blessed Christmas. We will talk about Christmas. There's a lot of questions on it. Just bear with us. We're going to talk about it after Christmas. There's a lot to talk about it, and we'll see you guys next week. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.
Adios.